I heard my father's voice crack before I heard what he actually said. I was standing in my childhood kitchen, the one I'd saved from being auctioned off 6 months earlier, holding a mug of coffee that suddenly felt too heavy. My mother sat at the table with her hands folded like she was praying. My younger brother Jason stood by the window, grinning like he'd just won the lottery. And my father who I'd written a check to for $680,000, cleared his throat and said, "Carla, we need to talk about the house." I set the mug down. "What about it?" "Well," he started, glancing at my mother, then at Jason, "your brother's graduating with his MBA next month. And your mom and I have been talking. We think the right thing to do is sign the house over to him. As a graduation gift." The room went silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. I stared at him. Then at my mother. Then at Jason, whose grin hadn't faltered for a second. "I'm sorry," I said slowly. "Did you just say you're giving Jason the house? The house I paid off?" My father nodded. "You're doing well, Carla. You don't need it. But Jason, he's starting his career. He needs stability. A foundation." That's when I realized they'd already made up their minds. This wasn't a conversation. It was an announcement. And I was just expected to smile and accept it. Let me back up 6 months. I was living in Austin, Texas, running a digital marketing consultancy I'd built from the ground up. I was 32 years old, single, and honestly, I was proud of what I'd accomplished. I'd left my parents' house in Phoenix at 18 with nothing but a partial scholarship and a lot of anger at being told I'd never amount to anything. Turns out, spite is a fantastic motivator. I hadn't spoken to my parents much over the years. A phone call at Christmas. A text on birthdays. My brother Jason, though? He was the golden child. The one who got his undergrad paid for, his car insurance covered, his rent subsidized while he found himself in his 20s. So when my mother called me at 11 at night, crying, I knew something was catastrophically wrong. "Carla, we're going to lose the house." I sat up in bed. "What?" She explained it through hiccuping sobs. My father had made some bad investments. Borrowed against the house. Missed payments. The bank had filed foreclosure paperwork. They had 60 days. "How much do you owe?" I asked. $680,000. I closed my eyes. That was almost every liquid dollar I had. "What about Jason?" I asked. There was a pause. "Jason's in school, honey. He can't help." Of course he couldn't. If this story sounds familiar, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I need to know I'm not alone in this. I didn't tell them right away. I sat on it for 3 days. I ran the numbers. I called my accountant. I looked at my investment portfolio, my savings, the business reserves I'd built up as a safety net. Paying off their mortgage would wipe me out. I'd be starting over. Again. But they were my parents. And despite everything, despite the years of being told I was too ambitious, too cold, too selfish for wanting a career instead of a family, I couldn't let them lose their home. So I wrote the check. I flew to Phoenix. I sat in their living room and handed my father a cashier's check for $680,000. My mother cried. My father hugged me for the first time in a decade. Jason, who happened to be visiting that weekend, clapped me on the back and said, "Wow, sis. That's really generous." Generous. Like I'd bought them dinner. I didn't ask for gratitude. I didn't ask them to pay me back. I just asked for one thing, that they never take the house for granted again. That they understand what it took for me to do this. My father looked me in the eye and said, "Carla, you saved us. We'll never forget this." I believed him. After that day, I went back to Austin and rebuilt. I took on extra clients. I worked 70-hour weeks. I skipped vacations. I said no to dinners, to dates, to everything that wasn't billable. My friends started calling me a ghost. My assistant asked if I was okay. I wasn't. But I didn't have a choice. In those 6 months, my parents called me twice. Once to ask if I could send Jason money for a conference. Once to tell me they'd booked a cruise. I said no to the first. I said nothing to the second. Jason, meanwhile, posted constantly on social media. Fraternity formals. Ski trips. Bottles of champagne at rooftop bars. His MBA program looked less like school and more like a 2-year vacation. I didn't comment. I didn't react. I just watched. And I told myself it didn't matter. That I'd done the right thing. That blood was blood. But deep down, I was starting to realize I'd made a terrible mistake. If you've ever given everything to people who gave you nothing back, hit that like button. You'll understand what happens next. 3 weeks before Jason's graduation, I got a group text. It was from my mother. A photo of an invitation. Embossed lettering. Heavy cardstock. Join us in celebrating Jason's achievement. There was a date. A time. A venue, some country club in Scottsdale. I waited for my personal invitation. A call. An email. Something. It never came. I texted my mother. "Am I invited?" She responded 6 hours later. "Of course, sweetheart. It's family." No details. No explanation for why I wasn't included in the planning. No acknowledgement that I was the reason they even had a house to celebrate in. I should have known then. But I bought a plane ticket anyway. That brings us back to the kitchen. My father standing there, telling me they were giving Jason the house. I stared at him for a long time. Then I asked the only question that mattered. "Did you ever plan to pay me back?" He frowned. "Carla, that was a gift." "A gift? You said yourself you didn't expect us to pay you back." "I said I didn't need you to. I didn't say you shouldn't want to." My mother finally spoke. Her voice was soft. Timid. "Honey, you're being unreasonable. Jason needs nothing," I snapped. "Jason has had everything handed to him his entire life. And now you're handing him a house. A house I saved." My father's jaw tightened. "You didn't save it for you, Carla. You saved it for us. And we're choosing to give it to Jason. That's our right." I looked at Jason. He still hadn't said a word. He just stood there, arms crossed, smirking like this was all some kind of game. "Say something," I told him. He shrugged. "I mean, it's their house, Carla." That's when I knew. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a miscommunication. This was intentional. Comment below if you've ever been the one who sacrificed everything just to watch someone else get the credit. Because that's exactly where I was. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just walked out of the kitchen, went upstairs to the guest room, and opened my laptop. Here's what most people don't know. When you pay off someone's mortgage, the transaction leaves a paper trail. Especially when it's that much money. Bank records. Disclosure forms. Documentation that proves exactly who paid what. I'd kept everything. I opened my files and started reading. Not because I thought I could reverse their decision, I knew I couldn't. The house was in their name. Legally, they could do whatever they wanted with it. But morally? Morally, I was about to make sure the entire world knew exactly what kind of people they were. I didn't want the house. I wanted them to see what they'd done. I spent the next 2 days quietly building my case. First, I compiled every financial record. Every email. Every text where my mother had begged me for help, where my father had promised they'd never forget what I did. Then I looked into Jason's social media. Turns out, he'd been posting about his future home for weeks. Talking about renovations he wanted to do. Joking about finally having a place to host parties. Not once did he mention me. Not once did he mention the sacrifice that made it possible. I took screenshots of everything. Next, I called a lawyer, a friend from college who specialized in family law. I didn't want to sue. I just wanted to understand my options. She told me what I already knew. I couldn't force them to give the house back. But I could make sure everyone knew the truth. Public opinion is a powerful thing, she said. She was right. Jason's graduation party was held at a country club with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a golf course. 200 guests. A live band. An open bar. My parents had spared no expense. I arrived exactly on time. I wore a black dress. I smiled. I hugged relatives I hadn't seen in years. I congratulated Jason when he walked up to me, champagne in hand, and said, "Thanks for coming, sis." No one knew what was about to happen. Halfway through the reception, my father stood up to give a toast. He talked about Jason's hard work. His dedication. His bright future. Then he announced the special gift they were giving him, the house. The room erupted in applause. Jason stood up, beaming. And then I stood up. "Can I say something?" I asked. My father looked confused. "Carla, we're in the middle of..." "I know. I'll be quick." I walked to the microphone before he could stop me. "Hi, everyone. I'm Carla, Jason's older sister. I just wanted to add a little context to this beautiful moment." The room went quiet. I pulled out my phone. 6 months ago, my parents were about to lose this house to foreclosure. They called me, desperate. So I paid off the mortgage. All $680,000 of it. I emptied my savings. I paused my business. I did it because they're my family. I looked at my parents. My mother's face had gone white. Today, they announced they're giving that house to Jason. As a graduation gift. Not to the daughter who saved it. To the son who's never paid a bill in his life. Someone gasped. "I don't want the house," I continued. "I just want everyone here to know the truth. That's all. Congratulations, Jason. I hope you enjoy your gift." I set the microphone down and walked out. The room was silent except for the sound of my heels on marble. If you think I went too far, comment below. If you think I didn't go far enough, smash that subscribe button. My phone started ringing before I even reached my car. My mother. My father. Jason. Aunts. Uncles. Cousins. I ignored all of them. I drove back to my hotel, packed my bag, and booked the next flight to Austin. By the time I landed, the story had spread. Family group chats were exploding. Someone had recorded my speech and shared it. It was making the rounds on Facebook. Then Twitter. Then TikTok. People I hadn't spoken to in years were messaging me. Some called me brave. Some called me petty. Some called me a hero. I didn't care what they called me. I just needed them to know. 2 weeks later, my father called. I almost didn't answer. But something told me to pick up. Carla. His voice was hoarse. Tired. Dad. We need to talk. I think we're past talking. There was a long pause. Then, the families turned on us. No one will return our calls. Your mother's sisters won't speak to her. Even Jason's friends are asking him about it. I didn't respond. We didn't realize. He trailed off. We didn't realize how it looked. How it looked. I repeated. Dad, it didn't look bad. It was bad. He sighed. What do you want from us, Carla? I thought about it. Really thought about it. I want you to admit that what you did was wrong. I want you to tell Jason he's not getting the house. And I want you to understand that I don't owe you anything anymore. Silence. We can't take it back from Jason now, he finally said. We already signed the papers. Of course they did. Then we have nothing left to talk about. I hung up. If you've ever had to cut someone off to protect your peace, leave a comment. I see you. Here's the thing they don't tell you about family betrayal. It doesn't always look like shouting matches and slammed doors. Sometimes it looks like quiet entitlement. Like taking without asking. Like expecting you to give everything and then acting surprised when you finally stop. I didn't get my money back. I didn't get an apology. Jason's still living in that house, posting photos of his bachelor pad on Instagram. But I got something better. I got my dignity back. I rebuilt my savings. I grew my business bigger than it's ever been. I started saying no to people who only called when they needed something. And I stopped waiting for my family to see my worth. Because the truth is, if someone can watch you sacrifice everything and still find a way to take more, they were never going to value you in the first place. 6 months after the graduation, I got an email. It was from Jason. The subject line said, "I'm sorry." I almost deleted it. But curiosity got the better of me. He wrote that he'd been thinking about what I said. That he'd talked to some friends who told him how messed up the whole situation was. That he'd tried to bring it up to our parents, but they shut him down. I know this doesn't fix anything, he wrote. But I wanted you to know that I see it now. And I'm sorry I didn't stand up for you. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't forgive him. But because forgiveness doesn't mean going back to the way things were. It just means letting go of the anger. And I'd already done that. What I'd tell anyone going through this. If you're watching this and you've ever been the person who gave everything just to be treated like nothing, listen to me. You don't owe anyone your sacrifice. Not your parents. Not your siblings. Not anyone who sees your generosity as weakness. Protect your peace. Set your boundaries. And if people can't respect what you've done for them, Let them learn the hard way what life looks like without you. I'm not saying cut everyone off. I'm saying know your worth. And don't let anyone convince you that loving them means losing yourself. I paid $680,000 to learn that lesson. You don't have to. Subscribe if this story meant something to you. Drop a comment about what you'd have done differently. And share this with someone who needs to hear it. Thanks for listening. This is Carla, signing off.